Hello, this is Brian Hegney, instructor of game and interactive media. We're going to move on to our second wine glass now. We're still going to be using the spline creation method, but it's going to be slightly different. This first shape, the first one we did, this shape is easily lathable, and so we use the lathe tool. Well, now we're going to go in the other direction. We're going to start with a circle for the base. So I'm going to go to Create, Shapes, Splines, and I'm going to choose circle. The last time we drew our own line system using the line tool, I'm just going to create circle. And I'm going to draw that circle pretty much here. You know what? I may start at the center of this image. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go over something that some of you have already seen before, which has been a little hampering, and it's the 3D Snaps toggle tool, or 3D Snaps toggle. So if you enable that, it turns on snaps, and if you hover your cursor over the grid, you can see, oh my gosh, this is snapping to all these points on the grid. And that allows you to draw a circle with its center anywhere in one of those grid intersection points. I'm going to hit Command Z, because I don't want to do that. Now, what if I want to draw my circle along the center of this plane? Can I do that? And the answer is yes. And what you want to do is you want to right-click the 3D Snap Toggle button at the top on the menu bar. Right-click that. And you'll notice under Snaps, you have a whole bunch of things that you could possibly check. Right now, Grid Points is checked on. Well, you know what? Grid Points is kind of annoying, so I'm going to check that off. And what I want to do is snap to the midpoint of this plane. And so what I will need to turn on is midpoint over here. With turning midpoint on, and now I just close it, you don't have to save it, it should snap to the midpoint of this plane, but why isn't it, right? And it isn't because this plane is frozen. So what I might want to do is come over into my scene area here and click on, oh, I don't remember which plane this is, so let's just uncheck them all. And now I can actually start. This is plane 2. Okay, so I will freeze all of them except for plane 2 there. Now I can start here and actually left click and drag, and I can create that circle until it looks about as wide as the base of my wine glass. And then I can let go. And I can right click to disable that circle, and I can left click the 3D snaps because I don't need it anymore. So I'm going to left click it to turn that off. Now, if I wanted to draw a circle from any of the other places, like from the vertex, I would have right clicked the 3 and clicked on like vertex, let's say. And if I did that, then I actually have the option, turning on 3D snap, turning on the circle, of drawing the circle from this vertex, from that vertex. Woo! Yeah, oops. That's a really big circle from this midpoint, right? So I can do that from all sorts of ways. So 3D Snaps is actually really helpful only when you want to use it exactly, right? So I'm going to turn that off so I don't use it again because I don't need it. Now, what do I do next? Oops, right click to turn off that tool. Yay. Now what I want to do is I still have this selected, the circle selected, so I'm going to go to my Modify tab. Now what happens when you have a spline shape selected, you can add an Edit Poly. When you add an Edit Poly to a closed shape, it gives it a face, a polygon face, which is helpful. And so what I'm going to do here is say, you know what? Okay, I'm going to take this face. I'm going to add a second Edit Poly modifier on. Why? Just because I'm a little bit crazy that way. And I'm going to select the face. And now what I'm going to do is just have fun extruding and beveling, extruding and beveling, extruding and beveling, all up the height of that glass. So I'm going to do that, and I'll show you what I'm going to do. And of course I'm not going to use the extrude tool. I'm going to use the bevel tool because bevel contains both extrude and bevel. So let me just zoom in here. Now I could go to front view, in which case I can click on extrude and click on bevel. And I'm going to zoom in until I can see that this has been well extruded and beveled. There we go. I'm going to click plus, and what clicking plus does is says accept that extrusion and bevel and start again. And I'm going to do that again, roughly to about here. I'm going to try that, see what it looks like. Nope. I actually want to go about halfway. Let's do halfway. I'm going to click plus. And again, I'm kind of eyeballing it here. Plus again. Now if it does this, the weird thing here, don't worry about that. It's just that the settings that it was on aren't really good enough. Gonna come down here. That looks good. Plus again. Oops, did I plus too many times? Command Z, Command Z. Plus. I accidentally hit plus twice, and that wasn't good. And I'm going to kind of go like that. Okay. Now what you can see here is that I have been extruding and beveling all the way up. I'm going to pause my video while I go ahead and go all the way up to the top of this glass. Okay, and I just recently finished extruding this upward. And we get to this point here where we have the top of the glass, the wine glass, and I'm done now, right? And so the next thing I want to do is, well, I guess this depends on your art direction, right? It depends on what you're actually using this wine glass for. Now, I personally want to end this out creating the inside of the glass, right? So what I'm going to do is, you know what? I'm going to use a second edit poly. I'm going to, again, add that edit poly, click on polygon selection mode. It'll go back to what you had originally selected. You now all know this. I'm going to choose the inset button and just inset a little bit. I want to inset just the width of the glass, something like that. And click the checkbox, and from there I'm going to go back to the bevel and extrude. Now in this case, we're beveling downward, so that's going to be a negative extrusion. And right now I'm going to go to my front view, and I'm going to tap F3 to see through the wireframe. And I'm going to use my extrude button. Okay, yes. So I extruded it in a negative way. And then I'm beveling it kind of to follow along the same width almost, so as the outside, if that makes sense. Or I'm going to keep the same width at the top. As I go downward, I'm probably going to be giving it a slightly thicker width, so that it actually mimics the width of a glass. Okay, and so there's one. Let's come down all the way here. Make that a little bit thicker. Let's click plus again. And I'm going to just go to the same segmentations that I was using previously as I was going up. And I'm going to kind of eyeball this, the width. Come back up a little bit. Something like that. Ooh, nice. You know what? This is where I'm going to use my intuition, I suppose, to try to make this a more curved indentation of the glass. There we go. There we go. Something like that. Something like that. And I'm going to check that off for finished. Yay. Okay. Once we have that, now this is where I'm going to right click and I'm going to go ahead and isolate this selection. Yeah. Now it's just showing me my glass, my wine glass. It turned everything off except for that what's called circle 1 because this object was started from a circle and it's just temporarily hidden. There we go. Now if I click off of this, what I want you to note is, wait a minute. Oh yes. What I want you to note is that this circle came from the top, right? This is not triangulated. So now the bottom doesn't have a circle here. And if you remember what we did with the first wine glass, we had to triangulate that cap because this is an n-gon. This is an n-gon. It is like a 20-sided polygon. And we don't want that. So I am going to first uncheck the polygon selection mode, so nothing is selected. I'm going to add an edit poly again. And in this edit poly, I'm going to actually select that top and delete it. And so now I'll be able to see through my my object, right? And the reason I did that is purely so that when I click cap holes, or when I add the cap holes modifier, I can triangulate that cap. It is now a great game asset, and that's fine. Okay, now the other thing I want to do is just make sure that this does not look like a piece of garbage, because right now that looks like a piece of garbage with all of these facets. It has probably enough sides as I need, and so what I'm going to do is select this object, add an edit poly on top, select every single polygon, just make sure it got everything, yes, and I'm going to clear all smoothing groups and just set every smoothing group to 1. When I do that, let's click that. Okay, it's starting to look good. Now the reason why it doesn't is because this top rim is actually set to 1. Now what I likely should do is go ahead and select this entire rim. And the way I did that really easily was I selected one of these polygons, held down Shift, and clicked on an adjacent polygon, and it selects a ring. Okay, what I'll do here is I'll take this off of smoothing group 1 by unchecking 1, and I'll put it all on smoothing group 2. When I do that, I'm going to uncheck this, and now I've got a smooth, most of this is smooth together. That makes sense. I mean, that's a piece of glass, but the rim there is it's not destroying the lighting here. It's not trying to round that corner. I guess the other thing I might want to do is select the bottom. I'm going to go to B for bottom, and I am going to turn on ignore back facing so that when I make a big selection here, this is the one time ignore back facing will work. Oh. Nope. Yeah, and then I can go to front and I can hold down Alt, which will delete from my selection and select everything there. Oh, of course, it didn't delete that, so I'm going to actually now deselect ignore back facing, Control Alt, select everything, and yay, it's got, oh, I have to actually say Alt, select all of that too. Yay. And that's just an easy way of selecting the entire bottom. Again, let me show that again in case you want to see that. No, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to set this to turn off 1, set that to 2. All that does is it makes the lighting here a little bit better when I'm kind of looking at my my object. Alright, so that is the second way that we have made a wine glass, and we can see that it looks fairly similar to the other one. Just the difference is the width of the glass here, and that's just based on what I decided to do. Alright, I will see you in the next one. Bye!